The night before, on a mattress in a behavioral health unit, I had made my peace with dying. And then I slept. For the first time in almost a week, I actually slept. I woke up on Saturday morning, Valentine's Day, having gotten real rest for the first time in days. And you would think that that would have fixed things. But the truth is, I woke up with a harder problem than the one I'd fallen asleep with. Because the one thing I could not settle, lying there that morning, was whether any of it was real. Whether the God I believed had been speaking to me for several weeks was actually speaking, or whether I was a sleep deprived man in a psych ward whose own mind had been making it all up. This episode is about the day that started to answer that question. It didn't answer it the way I expected. It answered it one small, obedient step at a time. Welcome back to the For His Glory podcast. I'm Solomon, and I'm honored you'd listen to my story. If you're just joining me, last episode I told you about the night I was admitted to Rogers Behavioral Health. This is the day after, and like last time, I want to be upfront with you. This episode is about a mental health crisis and the days I spent on an inpatient unit. If that's a tender place for you, take care of yourself as you listen. There are resources in the description. I woke up early, and almost as soon as I was awake, I felt God say something to me. Take a shower, get ready, look presentable. Now understand, I was in hospital-issued clothes, in a locked unit, with nowhere to be and no one to impress. But by that point in this story, I had learned one thing. When I got a nudge like that, I obeyed it, even when I couldn't see the reason. So I showered, I got myself as put together as a man can be in that place, and then I walked down the hall to the common area, presentable, with absolutely no idea what I was supposed to do that day. Here's how little I understood about where I was. I assumed I was there to get rest. I thought the whole point was sleep, that I'd essentially been checked into a very serious hotel where the job was to lie down until I was better. So when I didn't know what to do, I went back to bed. Eventually, a staff member came to my room and told me, gently, that I was about to miss breakfast. The cafeteria was out through a set of locked double doors, down the hall, on the same floor. I made my way there, got my food, and looked out at the room. Every table was full of other patients, and I'll be honest with you, I did not sit with them. I found a spot off by myself, near where some of the staff were sitting, and I ate alone. And then I did the exact same thing at lunch, late again, because I still didn't understand the rhythm of the place, alone again, by choice. It was only after lunch that I found out that there were scheduled activities I was supposed to attend. Classes, a calendar of the day's events posted right there in the common area. Someone finally pointed it out to me. I had walked past a full day of structure without registering that any of it applied to me. And I want to tell you, I was afraid I had made myself look unwell. I was sitting alone in the corner, clueless about the schedule, missing meals, and I thought if anyone's watching me, I look exactly like a man who's lost it. The very thing I was most afraid of being. Somewhere between breakfast and lunch, I met with the on-call psychiatrist covering the weekend. And what I wanted from that meeting was simple. I wanted to go home. I had slept, yes, but with the help of medication, and it had been an uncomfortable, shallow kind of sleep. What I actually wanted was my own bed, my wife, my kids. I wanted to be back in my house, in my life, and I told him so. He listened, and then he told me he needed more time to observe me. And he explained, kindly, but clearly, that if I chose to leave now, it would be against medical advice, AMA. I would have to sign a form saying I was walking out against the recommendation of my doctors. And that's something I didn't want to do. But the part of the conversation that sticks out to me now is what I told him about God. I told him I had been baptized in the Holy Spirit just 2 weeks earlier. I told him about the joy, a joy I had never known before in my life. And I told him how, in this last week, my sleep had drained away under the weight of everything at work and everything at home until I ended up here. And through all of it, I kept coming back to the same anchor, Jesus Christ, my pillar, the one thing holding me together when I couldn't understand a single thing that was happening to me. And I'll be honest with you, as a physician here, not just as a believer. At the time, sitting in that chair, I wasn't second guessing any of it. But now, looking back, I have to wonder. Because think about what he was seeing across the desk. A man who hadn't slept in days, on an inpatient unit, clinging out loud to Jesus, telling him God had been speaking to him. There's a name for that presentation in the psychiatry textbooks: hyperreligiosity, a sudden, consuming vocal preoccupation with God. And it can be a symptom of real illness. So I don't know, to this day, whether the very thing that was holding me together was also making the man across from me more concerned. For better or worse, maybe it was both. But I said it anyway. After lunch, I was sitting in the common area, and one of the patients suddenly called out, loudly, to no one in particular, "I was named after St. John the Baptist. I was meant to evangelize the world." Now, I don't know that woman's story, but I heard that and took it as a nudge. Not a coincidence, an assignment. Right here, right now, in this room, go share the gospel with someone. There was a young man sitting in the row of chairs ahead of me, so I got up, moved forward, and sat down next to him. And I had to muster the courage to do it. This was not a natural thing for me. But I told him, more or less, the thing I'd recently become convinced was that I was supposed to tell people that anyone who believes in their heart and confesses with their mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord will be saved. And to my surprise, he agreed with me, warmly. And then he told me his name, Noah. And then Noah asked me a question I was not expecting. He asked if I knew the story of Balaam's donkey. For anyone who doesn't, it's a strange, wonderful story from the book of Numbers. Balaam is traveling the wrong way against God, and his donkey sees an angel standing in the road that Balaam himself cannot see. The donkey does the only sensible thing that a donkey can do in that situation. It refuses to go forward. Balaam then hits the donkey, and eventually God opens the animal's mouth, and the donkey speaks to Balaam. And Noah put it to me in his own words. He said Balaam basically asked God, "Is this donkey really talking to me, or am I tripping?" And God told him, "He's really talking to you." I need you to understand why that landed on me the way it did. For days, weeks really, I had believed I was hearing God in one way or another, feeling Him lead me in my mind and in my heart. And at that exact moment, I was sitting in a psychiatric unit, admitted for insomnia, unable to tell you with any confidence which of my thoughts were God and which were my own exhausted brain. I could not sort the real from the imagined. And here was a guy I'd met 5 minutes earlier, handing me a story about a man who asked God, out loud, "Am I crazy, or is this real?" And God answering him, "It's real." I don't tell you that to prove anything. I tell you because of what it did in me. From nearly that point on, I kept saying the same thing to God over and over in my mind. Even if I'm crazy, I'll obey you anyway. I latched onto Noah after that. He was cheerful, he was maybe 20 years old, and he was full of light and hope in a place where that was not the easiest thing to be. Before dinner, a group of us were sitting in front of the television. The movie Remember the Titans was on. If you know the film, you know this scene. It's the boot camp scene. The coach, played by Denzel Washington, has taken a newly integrated team, black players and white players who want nothing to do with each other, and he's running them through fire until the divisions burn off and there's only one team left. And sitting there watching that, I heard it. In my mind, in my heart, the way I'd been hearing things. Line up with everyone else. Sit with them for dinner. You are one of them. So I did. I got my food, and instead of sitting in a corner by myself, I walked over and I sat down at a table full of other patients. And that's when some of the strangest few minutes of my whole stay happened. A man sitting across from me looked at me. He had kind eyes, but eyes that seemed to know more than they were letting on. And he said, out of nowhere, "You look like you could be some kind of doctor." And before I could even respond, the woman sitting next to him let out a quick little squeak of a word. MCW. The Medical College of Wisconsin, where I work, where I'm on faculty. She said the name of my own institution at a dinner table in a locked unit to a man in hospital clothes she had never met. I was taken aback. But then I was urged to answer the man's comment with a question of my own. I asked him, "Is that a word of knowledge?" Which, if you're not familiar, is the name for a specific gift of the Holy Spirit, knowing something you have no natural way of knowing. And the moment I said those words, the whole table changed. Everyone around me sat up. They came to attention. They started talking to me all at once. Why are you here? What are you afraid of? What's scaring you about the treatment they want to give you? I got goosebumps sitting there. It was like every person at that table already knew something about me and had just been waiting for me to sit down. I'm not going to over-explain it to you because I can't. I'll just tell you it was one of the most surreal things I have ever been a part of. And, for the first time in a week, I was rested enough to know it was really happening. That evening, during visiting hour, my sister Sheba and my wife Sharon came to see me. And I sat with them and I told them about the day. They looked at me and they could see that I looked better. And not just a little better. I was visibly better than the man they had walked into that building with the day before. Before I close, let me tell you the thing I most want you to carry out of this one. Last episode, I told you that I came to the realization that I was in a place where people needed help and that I needed help too. Saturday was the day that God made me live that and made me realize that I was no different than anyone else. Every nudge I got that day pointed the same direction, toward other people, not away from them. Get up and share the gospel with the man in front of you. Line up, sit at the table. You are one of them. And here's the other thing, the one I really need you to hear if you're where I was. God didn't hand me certainty. What he handed me was a story about a talking donkey and a series of small instructions, and he let me obey them while I still wasn't sure. That's what faith actually looked like for me in that place. Not, I know this is real, therefore I'll obey, but I don't know if this is real. But if there is no harm in obeying, I will obey. There's so much more I want to tell you about Rogers. I have barely introduced you to the people, or a song that took me apart in music therapy, or the psychiatrist God would use to finally bring me home. That's where I'll pick up next time. This is the For His Glory podcast. I'm Solomon. And even this, a talking donkey story, a table full of strangers who somehow knew me, all of it is for His glory. If you're struggling, please let someone know. There are resources in the description of this episode. Your story isn't over.